This special pre-Pesach podcast is dedicated in loving memory of Meir Ben Shmuel Chananya, Martin Miller, the father of our dear friend Adam Miller. Martin was a very special person, a true tzaddik. He founded a small shul that kept Yiddishkeit alive in Phoenix, Arizona. May his soul be elevated in heaven. 2 weeks ago, we started the 2026 annual Torch fundraiser, the annual campaign. It's happening still right now at givetorch.org. We are 92% funded. We're 92% of the way towards our goal. If you haven't done it yet, we'd love to have your support. givetorch.org. Every donation is doubled. My email address is rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. We are on the doorstep of one of the most important, if not the most important, time of the year. We're a few days before the great festival of Pesach, of Passover. Of course, Passover, it's the anniversary of the Exodus. Our people were enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, or 430, or 210, or 340, or 232, or 215, or 193, or 139, or 117, or 86. It depends how you count, but for a very long time. And then the Almighty took us out of Egypt with great miracles and wonders and signs. And we have the 10 plagues. And we have this dramatic event, this dramatic night where the nation is circumcising, and they're slaughtering the paschal offering, and they're eating the paschal offering with matzah all ready to go, and Pharaoh is hustling over to release the Jews, and they leave as on the wings of eagles, and after hundreds of years of slavery and servitude and subjugation and submission, the nation is freed. And they depart, and all's well. And 7 days later, of course, there's the showdown, Exodus 2.0 at the sea, the splitting of the sea. The nation erupts into song, and before you know it, they're eating manna and drinking water from a rock and defeating the nation of Amalek and coalescing around Mount Sinai for the greatest event in all of human history, when an entire nation of millions of people experience prophecy alongside Moshe, hear the 10 commandments, and the nation is cemented as the people, as the nation of God. The Exodus is so important that even though it's been 3,338 or so years since that wonderful time, it is still absolutely central to our lives. In fact, we have a mitzvah in the Torah, a commandment to never forget the Exodus and to remember it. There are 6 things our sages tell us that the Torah tells us we must never forget and we must always remember. We're told to remember the attack of Amalek and the sin of the golden calf and what happened to Miriam when she spoke negatively about her brother. Zacharis Yom HaShabbos L'Kacho, remember the day of Shabbos to sanctify it. That, of course, is part of the 10 Commandments. And finally, the Exodus. L'ma'an tizkar, you should remember the day that you left Egypt, the day that you departed Me'eretz Mitzrayim, from the land of Mitzrayim, from the land of Egypt, kol yimei chayecha, all the days of your lives. All the days of your lives, it means the mornings and nights. It means life as we know it today, and even when Messiah comes, and we will experience miracles and signs and wonders that will be greater than the miracles of the Exodus. Nevertheless, we are commanded to never forget and always remember the Exodus. And in fact, each morning, when we recite the Shema, we remember the Exodus. And each evening, when we recite the Shema, we remember the Exodus a second time. Indeed, we fulfill the mitzvah of remembering the Exodus. But of course, there's one day that towers above them all with respect to the Exodus, and that's the anniversary of the Exodus, the 15th of Nisan, the festival of Passover, Chag HaMatzos, the festival of Matzos, which is upcoming. And on that day, on that night, we gather together. It's a universally observed, a ubiquitously observed custom for Jewish families and Jewish communities to gather together and to retell the story of the Exodus in great detail over the course of many, many hours. We all get together for the Seder. And this is really an additional mitzvah. It's a little bit of a different mitzvah. It's not the mitzvah of remembering the Exodus. Rather, it's the mitzvah of recounting the Exodus. There's actually two separate mitzvos. One is a daily mitzvah to remember the Exodus. And then on the anniversary of the Exodus, it's a mitzvah of Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, of retelling, recounting, going through the details of the Exodus. And the Seder night is designed in a very precise way. Firstly, it's designed in a question and answer form. We have 4 questions that open up the evening, and we spend the whole night trying to answer those questions. And the Seder is designed to evoke questions that are not part of those 4 questions. Why? Because it's supposed to be such an important night, such a transformative night, that we need to have curiosity. We need a hook, as they say in the industry. You need to have something that pulls a lead, where people's minds are opened and their curiosities are piqued and their mind is receptive. This is such an important night. This is such an important message. It's imperative that everyone, the 4 types of children even, all different types of people, even adults, need to be open and exposed for this story. We have the matzah on the table, the same type of bread that typifies the servitude and the Exodus, and of course, the transformation therein. We begin by talking about the somewhat ignoble and inglorious origin of our people. The structure of the night is not just a jump to the end, to the glory and to the drama and to the ecstasy of the Exodus. Rather, we start from the somewhat shameful and inglorious origins. We talk about Terach. We never speak about Terach. Terach, father of Abraham, he barely makes an appearance anywhere in our life. We mention him just as the progenitor of Abraham. That's it. Terach dies in Haran. That's it. We focus on Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob thenceforth. Comes along the Seder night, we talk about Terach, father of Abraham, and he did idolatry. And where are we today? And how'd that happen? How do you get from Terach, a purveyor of idolatry, one of the worst people we could conceive, who took his own son to be executed for the great crime of repudiating idolatry? Somehow from Terach came Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and this glorious nation. The night is designed to begin with the sad or the inglorious, and only then end with a crescendo with the climax of the Exodus. This is how this night and the retelling of Exodus on this night is different than the twice daily remembering of the Exodus. But zooming out, we have to ask a very important question. Why is it so important to remember the Exodus? What's the purpose of remembering the Exodus? This event happened again more than 3,000 years ago. It's a long time. Even events of yore, like the Constitutional Convention, 1787. We know a little bit about it because we went through the American history, but like, when did it happen? What were the dates of when it happened? People don't even know. July 4th, people still remember. Those hot dogs won't eat themselves. Those fireworks won't light up the sky by themselves. But something that happened 1,000 years ago, can we think of any event that happened 1,000 years ago that everyone knows exactly when it happened, that everyone changes their entire lives to celebrate it, to relive it? This is 3,300 years ago. 3,300-year increments. It's a long time. And it's still so important that everyone knows this is the Seder night, this is Passover, this is Pesach, this is the night that towers above them all. What are we trying to do? Why is it so important? Why is it so central? Why are we remembering the Exodus twice a day and then retelling it once a year? Really twice a year in the diaspora. Now, of course, the Exodus appears elsewhere in our calendar. 50 days after the Exodus came the Sinai Revelation. And we have the festival of Shavuos. And if you look at the liturgy associated with the festival of Shavuos, it mentions the Exodus. A half a year to the day after Pesach comes Sukkot, festival of Sukkot. And that's another 7-day, 8th day if you count the 8th day, 9 days if you count the 8th day in the diaspora. More festivals related to the Exodus. But here's the interesting thing. If you look at the liturgy of the Shabbos, it too is a remembrance of the Exodus. Friday night, when we say Kiddush, when we herald in the Shabbos, the Sabbath, we invoke the Exodus. Now that doesn't make, at least initially, it doesn't make logical sense. The Exodus is an event that happened 3,300 years ago. But that's way after the events or the Shabbos that we are reliving with our Sabbath. Why do we observe the Shabbos? The Torah tells us, well, God, He ceased to work on day 7. We too cease to work on day 7, and thereby we testify that God created the heaven and the earth and everything in it during those 6 days of Genesis. That preceded the Exodus by a long time. How come the Shabbos is also a remembrance of the Exodus? The festivals I get, or the festivals, the festival that got everything started is the Exodus, and that, of course, is a remembrance of the Exodus, but Shavuos and Sukkot, I get it. Even Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur are remembrances of the Exodus, I get it. What is Shabbos, which preceded the Exodus? What does it have to do with the Exodus? Now, if you and I were in charge of the naming schemes of the festivals, we would probably agree to maybe call Rosh Hashanah. It's the new year, the head of the year. I get that. Yom Kippur or Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement. Well, that's really the mitzvah of the day. That's what happens on this day. This day God will atone for us. Made sense. Shavuos, maybe wouldn't agree on that name. Even the Torah has multiple names for it. Is it the day of the harvesting, Yom HaBikurim, Atzeres, the day of stoppage? The Torah itself offers many different names for Shavuos. Sukkot or Sukkot, well, that's the mitzvah we say in the Sukkah. I get it. Pesach, what does the word Pesach mean? Passover. So Rashi tells us, Pesach, Passover, that's the name of the paschal offering. When the nation departed Egypt, they brought the paschal lamb. They slaughtered it, and then they roasted it. And then they ate it the night of the Exodus. And then, every year, subsequently, the nation went on the pilgrimage to the tabernacle, to the temple, each festival of Passover, and they reenacted this. They brought a paschal lamb, and they ate it that night. And of course, we don't have a temple today, so we don't have the great privilege of eating a roasted lamb, but we have a matzah instead. That's the afikomen, the last matzah that we eat on the Seder night. And we pray that we should merit to see the rebuilding of the temple so that we can bring that sacrifice, we can bring that paschal lamb, and we can eat it properly, we can fulfill the mitzvah properly. Well, why is the paschal lamb called the Passover lamb? So I get the festival is called Passover because of the sacrifice, which is the Passover. But why is the sacrifice itself called Passover? So again, Rashi tells us that this is because on the night of the Exodus, God struck all the Egyptian firstborn, but he passed over, he skipped over, he leapfrogged the Jewish homes, the Israelite homes. And that's why the paschal offering is called the paschal offering, the Passover offering, and that's why the festival is called the Passover festival. Meaning, there's something central about the fact that there's a leap, there's a jump, there's a skipping of the Jewish homes, the Israelite homes, and that's why the paschal offering has that name. It's called the Passover offering, and that's why the festival is called the Festival of Passover. And then Rashi in his comment tells us that this teaches us that everything that we do on this day should be in a manner of skipping and jumping. It's not just that God skipped and jumped. We too, when we do the mitzvahs of this festival, should skip and jump. It's a very curious comment that Rashi tells us, and it gets to the heart of this festival, as we shall see. One more question. It's a little bit of a technical question. So we always lose half the audience. Whenever it's a technical question, we lose half the audience. So I'll tell you when the technical question's over so you could rejoin us if you get lost in the details. Technically speaking, there's actually two festivals. There's the festival of Passover and there's the festival of mitzvos. The 14th day of Nisan, the day before the Exodus, that's when the nation brought the paschal offering. Once the festival began, it was too late to bring the paschal offering. So actually, this is again a technical point, the 14th day is the festival of Passover, and the 15th day is the festival of mitzvos. Of course, technicalities are lost on the masses, so people just call it all the festival of Passover. But there's something remarkable that's happening over here. The 7 in the diaspora day festival of mitzvos, which we call Passover, the sacrifice that is kind of the name, the eponymous sacrifice of this festival, is brought before the festival. Why is it important, or why is it necessary that the paschal offering be brought before the festival, not on the festival? If you try to bring on the festival, it's too late. Okay, technical questions over. Rejoin us. Here's the idea I want to suggest. It's an idea that we see everywhere. I'll give you some examples that you've never heard before. Maybe the defining characteristic of the Exodus is speed, is rapidity. We eat matzah. Why do we eat matzah? Because the nation left so fast that they had dough that had not been transformed into bread. And they traveled from Egypt, really from all the different parts of Egypt, to Ramses. And then they traveled from Ramses to Sukkos, which is about 230 kilometers. And when they got to Sukkos, they baked the yet unleavened bread, and it had not become leavened because it was so fast. Now, what does this mean? Just for us simple people, if you mix flour and water, you have 18 minutes. 18 minutes, that's it. until that dough can no longer be considered matzah. It's not possible. Well, once 18 minutes have passed, it's too late. So that means within 18 minutes, the entire Jewish nation scattered all over Egypt were coalesced as one in Ramses, and brought, as if on the wings of eagles, to Sukkos, a distance of 230 kilometers, or more than 100 miles, 150 miles, all within 18 minutes. How long would it take to gather, 3 million people from the state of Texas into one place and bring them together 150 miles away? It would take months. It happened within 18 minutes. And that's why we eat matzah, to remember the speed of the Exodus. It's just miraculous. Now, the rapidity of the Exodus was also spiritual. Our sages tell us that a moment before the Exodus, the nation was at a very, very low state. They were spiritually on the 49th level of impurity. Now, we don't know what this means, but we're told by our sages that there's 50 levels of purity, also known as 50 levels of insight, also known as 50 levels of Torah, and there's 50 levels of impurity. More precisely, 50 gates. 50 gates of purity, 50 gates of impurity. So there's like 100 potential places spiritually that a person could be. And as they change, either they improve or they regress, they move up or down these potential 100 stations of purity or impurity. Now, level 50 is the highest. 50 positive is the highest level. And that's so high that even Moshe couldn't reach it. He got to the level 49 of holiness. He could not reach level 50. And that's why he so desperately wanted to enter the land of Israel. Because had Moshe entered the land of Israel, he would have achieved the highest level, level 50. But he was denied that. And 50 is symbolic of all the 50s that you know. We have the 49 years of the Shemitah cycle, and then there's year 50, this one standalone year, the Jubilee, and so on. We have the 49 days of counting the Omer, and then day 50, national revelation. 50 is symbolic of some other epoch of existence, some other realm. Now, on the flip side, in the impurity side, level 50 is the point of no return. And the nation, before the Exodus, they were wallowing in the depths of spiritual depravity. They were on the 49th gate of impurity, on the doorstep of gate number 50. And if they would have fallen to gate number 50, they would have been gone forever. They would have been irredeemable. Even though, to be perfectly precise, according to the Kabbalists, even on level 50, there would have been a mechanism by which they could have been extricated. Maybe. But the nation, before the Exodus, was in a very, very low point. And then the Exodus happened. And they were changed. They were redeemed. They were uplifted. They were transformed. They were brought from darkness, le'or gadol, to great light. Where did they go? So again, this is what our sages tell us. From minus 49, 49th level, 49th gate of impurity, to plus 49. They jumped all the way from one extreme to the other extreme. How fast that happened? In a flash. There was a revelation of God in Egypt, and that elevated the nation to a dramatic high, from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. That's what it means, by the way, skipping. That's why Passover is called Passover. If you wanted to go from minus 49 on the rung, on the ladder, you'd have to go minus 49 to minus 48 to minus 47 to minus 46 and so on until you get to positive territory, 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 40 to 48 to 49 until you reach level 49. The secret of Passover, the secret of skipping and jumping, is that there was this absolute rapid, dramatic change from minus 49 instantly to plus 49, skipping all those intervening steps. That's the secret of the Exodus. Now, Egypt was the host of our people for hundreds of years. And this was a very spiritually challenging environment for the nation. The nation were drawn down by their associations with the Egyptians. But Egypt is not the only foreign nation, the nation that our people were condemned to contend with. After the Exodus, the nation makes the way into the wilderness, and spend 40 years in the wilderness, and then they enter the land of Canaan. And they're told, these Canaanites are Egypt 2.0. The two most depraved nations are the Egyptians and the Canaanites. The nation is told to not emulate two nations. There's two nations that were commanded, it's mitzvah of the Torah, to not emulate. Don't emulate the ways of the Egyptians, and don't emulate the ways of the Canaanites. Why? These two are the worst of the worst. The two most spiritually degraded nations are the Egyptians and the Canaanites. And the nation went from the Egyptians to the Canaanites. From the Exodus to the wars against Canaan. And what we find so interesting is that there was this rapid disentanglement from Egypt. In a flash, in one night, in one fell swoop, the nation was removed, was extricated from Egypt. And then we see descriptions of the conquest of Canaan. And God tells the Israelites that it's not going to happen fast. Me'at, me'at agarshenu. Slowly, slowly, I will banish the Canaanites. It'll take a long time. It's going to be a very slow and gradual disentanglement from Canaan. I found this remarkable, that the words me'at, me'at, which means slowly, slowly, or little by little, it appears only twice in the Torah. Me'at, me'at, which means little by little, but very little at a time. It appears exactly twice in the Torah. Once in the book of Exodus, and once later on in the Torah, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 22. So we have Exodus chapter 23, and Deuteronomy chapter 7. In both cases, it's talking about how the nation will separate from the Canaanites, slowly, slowly, bit by bit, a little at a time. The epitome of speed is Exodus. The epitome of speed is the separation of the nation from the Egyptians. And the epitome of slowness, of gradualness, of incrementality, if you will, I don't know if that's a word, of bit by bitness, is the separation of the nation from the Canaanites. Two nations, very similar, the two most depraved and spiritually degraded nations, the two nations that we're told we cannot associate with because they're too damaging to us. With one, we depart in a flash. With the other, it's really slow. And indeed, if you look at the books of the prophets, it took centuries to finally conquer all of Canaan. Only King David, hundreds and hundreds of years after the crossing of the Jordan under the leadership of Joshua, only then was the entire nation of Canaan conquered and settled. So we see two systems. The system of rapid conquest, of breakneck speed. That's the departure, the separation from Egypt. And we see a very slow and very lumbering disencumbering of our people from the Canaanites. It seems to me that there's two systems of transformation. The Egypt model, the Canaanite model. Egypt symbolizes the evil inclination. Canaan also symbolizes the evil inclination. And the wars, the Exodus and the wars against Canaan, symbolize how you could separate and elevate yourself above the evil inclination. And there's two systems. The fast, the really fast, and the slow, the really, really, really slow. Lightning quick, blitzkrieg, or a very gradual, slow, and grinding, inch by inch battle. We see this paradigm in many places. For example, what's the prize? What's the prize of prizes? What's the ultimate prize? What's the ultimate ambition? What's the ultimate cherished treasure that we want more than anything else? There's a word for it in our literature. It's called Olam Haba, the world to come. This is not just afterlife. Again, we did many podcasts on the subject in the past. Afterlife is a much more broad term. It can refer to a lot of different things. It can refer to paradise, Gan Eden, the garden, whatever that means. It's a broad term for many different things. Olam Haba is a very specific term. It's for the world to come. We know simultaneously a lot about this world and very little. Because even the great seers, even the great prophets, could not envision it. They can envision the Messiah, they can envision other things, but they cannot envision Olam Haba. Ayin lo ra'asa, and I cannot see it. Only God can. It's like the sun. It's beyond our capacity. We don't have the faculties to absorb it. Too much light. If someone lives a life, the highest and worthiest form of life, the end goal, the prize of prizes, is admission, is a chair. I called it a golden ticket. A golden ticket, an invitation to Olam Haba, to the world to come. How does one earn Olam Haba? So I have to drop the obligatory plug. This is sort of the main theme of my book, the previous book, Upon a 10-Stringed Harp. How do you earn a golden ticket? But in that book, I have a chapter called Spiritual Shortcuts. This is like for, I don't know, we used to say millennials, but now it's like Gen Z. They don't want to do all the work. Just give me crypto. Which crypto can I buy to become rich? So I can drive my Lamborghini and not have to do any work. So we want to accommodate everyone, right? Is there spiritual shortcuts? Can you earn that golden ticket very, very fast? Is there a way to get the prize of prizes without all the hassle and the sweat? So I cite in that chapter 3 stories from the Talmud. The Talmud has 3 stories about people that weren't necessarily very righteous. In fact, were quite wicked. But all of them did some single act of great heroism, gallantry, and bravery, and sacrifice. And they earned Olam Haba in 1 hour. And the Talmud, in all 3 of these stories, the Talmud says that there was a prophecy after these events that said, this person who did this great, valorous, heroic act is invited to the world to come. They have earned a golden ticket. And the great sages, they heard that, they started crying. Some people, they have to work an entire lifetime. Many, many years of ceaseless service of God to earn an invitation. And some people acquire it in 1 hour. Well, what are those stories? So I feel like I don't have to tell it to you because you probably read my book already. I don't want to have to just tell the story. Very, very dramatic stories, all three of them. But in case you're one of the, 5% of listeners who haven't read the book in its entirety multiple times, you can look in the book of Talmud called Avodah Zarah. Page 10b is one story. Page 17a and 18a, that's you'll find the second and third stories. Each one very dramatic. We see two systems. The prize of prizes, Olam Haba, a golden ticket. There's the Egyptian model. Get it in 1 hour. And then there's the Canaanite model. Many, many years. In the book of Numbers, Moshe asks for a successor. He's told finally that you will not lead the nation into Canaan, into Israel. So he asks God to appoint a successor. The nation should not be like a shepherdless flock. And God tells him a very surprising answer. Joshua, your attendant. The person who's never left your side for 40 years. He will lead the nation. Now this is surprising because Joshua was not the expected candidate. Moshe had candidates. Maybe the people would have had candidates of their own. But Joshua was not up there viewed as the leader in waiting, as the heir apparent. And the Midrash says, well, what did Joshua do to earn that right? And really, the Torah says that Joshua never departed Moshe's side. Whatever Joshua did, it took him 40 years to do it. Because for 40 years, he was with Moshe every step of the way. And the Midrash says, well, maybe he was arranging the benches. He was like in charge of making sure that the benches were all ready for the students in the academy. And he did it every day. He was always the first one to come to the academy to set up the benches. But regardless, Hasidus do not find one particular event that rendered Joshua as worthy of being Moshe's successor. Now, in that same Torah portion, Aaron's successor is also, or at least Aaron's eventual successor, is also revealed. And that's a man named Pinchas. And Pinchas is the opposite system that Joshua, he used the opposite system that Joshua employed. Pinchas is one event, one heroic act, one valorous act, one act of self-sacrifice, of accepting personal endangerment to stand up for God's glory. Two systems. Joshua, it's years, it's decades of steady, consistent growth. And Pinchas, it's one event that renders him worthy. Messiah. We find, again, opposite descriptions of what Messiah will look like. For example, a very famous verse, Bi'ita achishana. In its time, it will be accelerated. Those are opposites. In its time means whenever its time is. There's no way to speed it up. There's the time when Messiah is supposed to come. And then there's the achishena. I will expedite it. I will accelerate it. And the commentaries, the Talmud really speaks about this. There's two ways we can have Messiah. It could be in its time, and that could take thousands of years, or it could happen today. Hayom im bekolo tishmo. When the great sage met Messiah, he said, well, when are you coming? He said, today. But he didn't finish the sentence, today. If you do what it takes to earn it today. Messiah could come in the Egypt variety or in the Canaan variety. In Bilam's prophecy, the road prophet, the prophet of the enemies, chapter 24 of Numbers, he prophesies about a star A star emerging from Jacob. Darach kochav miyakov. A star will come forth, will burst forth, will erupt from Jacob. And Rashi says that's a reference to Messiah. But the Midrash says it's a reference to really every person's pursuit of greatness. God told Abraham, your descendants will be like stars. A star will emerge from Jacob. What does the word darach mean? Chapter 24, verse 17 of Numbers. A star will darach. That's the Hebrew word. So it's amazing. You find the commentaries, they say exact opposite interpretations. The word darach can either mean to tread really, really slowly, or it can refer to a shooting star, a meteor that flashes in one brilliant burst across the sky. That could be a reference to Messiah. It could happen in this way or that way. It could be a reference to every person who is privileged to be part of Abraham's prophecy, like the stars of the heaven. How does a person achieve greatness? There's two models. There's the Egypt model, there's the Canaanite model, there's the slow treading of light years away, where it takes a long time to see that star shine forth. Or it could be a brilliant eruption of a shooting star. There's two systems of transformation. There's what we could call the bread and butter of our daily life. Every single day, we're trying to colonize. That's a bad word today. I'll say it anyhow. We're trying to colonize Canaan. We're trying to conquer territory for God. In our heart, there is a squatter. It's called a foreign god. And we have to clear away the enemy so that way we can make ourselves a vessel, a domicile for God. And how do we do that? It's an enemy that's very entrenched. You got to do it slowly, bit by bit. And then there's a system of Egypt. There's a system of passing over. There's a system of skipping. When do you know when it's time to take a great leap forward and when the right thing is to not skip a rung? We're told this many times. We're always cautioned. If you're climbing a ladder, you don't want to skip a rung because then you could fall all the way down to the bottom. But sometimes you go from minus 49 to plus 49. Sometimes the correct mode is to be Canaan mode. Let me do what I need to do, one step at a time. Incremental, slow improvements. And sometimes it's Egypt mode. It's shooting star mode. It's a time for Pinchas. It's a time to acquire Olam Haba in 1 hour. This is a very important question because we're always trying to improve. We always have our eye on the prize of prizes. But how you go about doing it, it very much depends what's the right approach at a given time. Is this a time to try to grab more than you can swallow? Or is this a time where you're supposed to take a little bit? And tafasta meruba lo tafasta, if you grab too much, well, you'll end up losing ground and even regressing. This is the most important question. Which hat am I wearing? The hat of Egypt, the hat of the Exodus, or the hat of the conquest of Canaan? The lumbering Messiah, the pauper riding on a donkey, I'll see you in a couple of centuries? Or is it the rapid transformation? Pison, suddenly, out of the blue, with no forewarning, Messiah arrives. It's all over the news. How do you know which one's which? So every day, the default state is you're climbing a ladder, you don't skip a rung. There are many mitzvos, though, that are a remembrance of the Exodus. Whenever it says there's a mitzvah of a remembrance of the Exodus, it doesn't just mean, oh, remember the story. It means that the mitzvah itself contains a dose, a measure of rapidity, of Exodus-like rapidity. Shabbos has nothing to do with the Exodus, apparently, because it preceded the Exodus. When we recite the Kiddush Friday night, the liturgy of the Shabbos tells us this is a remembrance of the Exodus. There's something about this mitzvah that gives us a little dose of rung-skipping ability that resembles the Exodus. Why do we have festivals? We ask the question, why is this night different than every other night on Pesach? We could ask the exact same question when we're sitting in the sukkah. So in the Northeast, it should be really cold. Why are we eating outdoors? We should be inside in the heat. In Houston, Texas, it's really hot. We should be inside in the climate-controlled air conditioning. Why is this night different than every other night? The answer is because this is a remembrance of the Exodus. This is a particular time of the year where rapid improvement, run-skipping improvement, leapfrogging possibilities are open. Most of the time it's dangerous. Most of the time it's counterproductive. Most of the time the hat we have to wear is the hat of Canaan. But every once in a while there's a little dash of the Exodus. Every once in a while we have the opportunity to achieve something grand in an hour, in one fell swoop. And there's one night that's the Exodus of all Exoduses. It's a night where the flash and the revelation of the Exodus is once again present. There are systems of many years and systems of 1 hour. The highest level of 1 hourness, of rapidity of transformation, is the Seder night, is the night of the Exodus. That's a time for Pinchas. That's a time for the shooting star. It's time to pass over. The floodgates are open. It's a time for not the slow lumbering Messiah, not the slow lumbering conquest, not the slow moving star. It's a time for rapidity. All of the mitzvos that we have to do on this night are in a method of jumping and skipping. Transformation rapidly. How do you know when to put on your Egypt hat and when to put on your Canaan hat? Here we have the first answer. Every time or every mitzvah that is assigned with the moniker, a remembrance of the Exodus, it's a time for rapid leaps. Every Shabbos, it's not an ordinary day. What you can accomplish in one Shabbos, you can't accomplish in a month of ordinary days. Now, of course, the next question is, well, how do you do it? Now that I understand that this is a different system, I'm not just taking one step in front of another step and making sure that I'm making progress. How actually do you go about taking a quantum leap? That's a separate question. Maybe we'll learn a little bit about that in just a few moments. But that's how you know, or that's one answer of how you know that it's a time for a great leap forward. There is a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that tells us not to be dismissive of every person or of any person. Don't say this person is so wicked, is so beyond the pale, I'm going to dismiss them. She'ein lecha adam she'ein lo shah. There is no person who doesn't have his hour. The way I interpreted this Mishnah is that every person will be given a minimum of one opportunity over the course of their life to acquire Olam Haba in 1 hour. And therefore, if there's a person that you look at and you say, well, there's nothing redeeming about this person, there's nothing admirable about this person, there's nothing about this person that is worthy of praise, you may be right. But it's possible that they'll earn Olam Haba in their hour. Who knows what they will do when their hour of great opportunity comes. That's not necessarily related to the festivals. At some point over life, every single person will be afforded a golden opportunity to acquire a golden ticket in one fell swoop. You never know when that's going to happen, but our sages are telling us that every single person will have such an opportunity. But the night that we know for sure is filled with this opportunity is a night that we call Passover. We're calling it Passover because there are 100 steps from minus 49 to plus 49. I know the persnickety ones amongst us. Well, that's not 100 steps. It's only 98. Okay. You're still listening. I'm just checking to see if you're listening. The pedants amongst us. There's one night that we know for sure. This is the night for passing over. It's in the name. You can't miss it. You can't miss it. And we're like, oh, Passover. Okay, Passover. No, we're passing over all the steps. This was the night of the polar transformation from minus 49 to plus 49, of the quantum leap forward, of the great leap for mankind, that flash of revelation that catapulted the nation from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs, from servitude, submission, subjugation, to salvation, to redemption, to great illumination. That is the Exodus. And that's why it's so important. As they say, it's too important to pass over. You can't miss it. It's not tolerable. If someone is a chacham, a wise person, or the rasha, the wicked person, or the tam, the simple person, the wholesome one, or the one who doesn't even know how to ask, every type of person has to be involved. It's too important. How do you go about doing it? How do you exploit the opportunity? So before the night of the Exodus, there's the paschal offering. And the paschal offering is brought before the actual night. It's the 14th, not the 15th. What's the meaning behind that? So she just tell us that in order for you to have an Exodus, you have to have self-sacrifice. Now, what does that mean? In Egypt, it meant the blood and the blood. The blood gives you life. The blood gives you life. The nation is told, we're going to be traveling for a long time in the wilderness. But everyone needs to circumcise. When are we circumcising? A month before, of course, so we could convalesce, right? No, the night before, the day before. Everyone left Egypt bloodied and bandaged. Why? Because they just circumcised. Why? Because that's the requisite self-sacrifice to be able to absorb all the light. That's one blood. And then there's the second blood, the blood of the paschal offering. The nation in Egypt had become idolaters like their Egyptian counterparts. And what did the Egyptians worship? They worshipped the sheep. And Moshe tells them, God tells Moshe, tell the nation, you have to take a sheep, a paschal lamb, and tie it to your bed and watch it for 4 days, and then slaughter it. And then take the blood and put it on your doorpost so everyone could see exactly what you did. And then you have to roast the lamb so everyone can smell it. The entire Egypt smelled like a massive barbecue. And everyone knew exactly what was happening. The sacred cow, the sacred lamb of Egypt is being roasted. Thousands of them. At any other time, that would result in the nation being absolutely slaughtered. Because this was the great deity of Egypt. But the blood of the paschal offering was needed in order to facilitate the great light of the night of that night. The blood and the blood. In order for someone to make the most of Pesach, there has to be some facilitator of self-sacrifice. Perhaps we can suggest that's what we're trying to do before Pesach. It's time of great preparation. And what's the preparation? We're trying to find every single speck of chametz in our homes. And do whatever we can to make sure our homes are completely spotless. And it's a lot of work to do it properly. And as they just tell us, that the nickname that the Yetzer Hara has is chametz, is the leaven in the dough. What that means is that when we're inspecting our homes, going through every room carefully to try to find even the smallest speck of chametz, simultaneously we're supposed to inspect our hearts and try to find and identify and remove every speck of the foreign god, of the leaven of the bread, of the Yetzer Hara inside of us. That is the preparation for Pesach. We want the revelation. We want the transformation. We want the festival. We want the remembrance of the Exodus. And there's one day that's the Exodus of all Exoduses. A day that's different than all the other days. A day that carries with it propitious potential for outsized transformation. It's the day of Pesach. Chag HaMatzos, the festival of Matzos. The Seder night, we spend the whole night telling over the whole story in great detail. Why? We're trying to be vessels for this great light. We can accomplish amazing things, outsized things, great leaps forward, provided that we're willing to be a vessel for that. We should all be so fortunate as to merit to have transformation. That's what we want. We want transformation. And we should know when is the proper time for slow and gradual Canaanite transformation, and when's the right time for a great leap forward. And we have a clue. Whenever it says Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim as a remembrance of the Exodus, we know for sure that there's something about what we're about to do that has within it a step-skipping capacity, a step function, to use a fancy word. To take a big leap forward, to skip some runs. And that's what's happening on the night of Pesach, on the night of the Seder. So why are we remembering what happened 300 plus years ago? Not just because of the past, because of the present. That same revelation is open to us. A person can emerge from one Pesach if they're willing to put in the effort and the self-sacrifice, completely transformed. What would take years in any other context can be accomplished in one night. We should always be fortunate to have a kosher and happy and joyous Passover, a meaningful Passover, a powerful Passover, a Passover that we don't pass over, we don't skip. We don't say, oh man, my kids do this, but I wasn't so upset about it because I remember me doing this. Oh man, there's nothing to eat, especially days before Pesach, right? Because you're trying to get the house kosher for Pesach, but everyone's still eating chametz. So you got to eat it outside. That's now our house there's no chametz in the house right now. And sorry, you can't come. You got to shake yourself off. Oh, there's nothing to eat. Oh, you're trying to starve me. But I remember I hear echoes of myself saying that. So it doesn't even bother me. We should have a kosher and happy and joyous Passover. And we should be able to tap in a little bit to the great light that's available for all on these incredible days. My email address is rabbi@gmail.com. I look forward to your questions, your comments, and your feedback.